Good morning. It's August 15th today, and we are in First Corinthians chapter 10. And in this chapter here, Paul is talking with the Corinthians about how uh, they can learn from the example of the Old Testament. And I love that as an Old Testament teacher. That is something that motivates me, that reminds me of the importance of the Old Testament. And he walks through the Exodus with them, the wilderness wandering, beginning in verse 1 of chapter 10. And verse 6, then he says about the things that happened in the wilderness wanderings of the people of Israel. Now, these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. Do not be idolaters as some of them were, and so on. And then verse 11, he says, these things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the culmination of the ages has come. So if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. There were those who had confidence in their position with God because of their membership in the family of God in Israel, but their confidence was misplaced because their faith wasn't rightly placed and wasn't rightly strengthened by their real relationship with God. However, it says twice that these things happened to them as examples and were written down for our benefit. And I know you've probably heard me say this before if you've been around me for long, but I can't imagine what it'd be like if we showed up in heaven and we came across those who had been wandering in the wilderness and they asked us, did you hear about what had happened to us? Did you learn from what had happened to us? And if we were to say, oh, no, what happened? They would think, well, this was for your benefit. Everything that I went through was for your benefit and it was written down for your benefit. So why did you not take advantage of my mistakes, the lessons that could have been learned from my life? Were those in vain? Those things that we suffered through. Certainly, we don't want to come across that. We want to take advantage of what God has given to us in Scripture, especially examples from previous people, so that we don't repeat their same mistakes and so that we take from those good things that they did and apply them to our lives. And then one of the most comforting verses in all of Scripture, I think, is verse 13 of First Corinthians chapter 10. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. In other words, people have always faced this kind of temptation that we are going through. We might look at our life, our circumstances, and say, nobody knows the things that I am suffering through. And maybe the concrete things themselves, the very exact situations are unique to us in some way, but in general, those temptations are common to all of mankind. They all experience the same kinds of temptation that we do, and have been doing that for thousands of years. And then the encouraging part, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, but when you are tempted, He will also provide a way so that you can endure it. One of the ways that we can endure it, according to this passage, is by knowing that others ahead of us have suffered through this kind of thing, and have been endured and have lasted and have been brought safely home by the Lord. And so if that happened for them, it can also happen for us because it is God who is faithful. So a really good word from First Corinthians chapter 10 today.